and welcome to the Philosophy Web. We are here for our second video with Dean, Joni, and Morgan. And today we are going to talk about radicalism. And that's a very broad topic, so radical movements, psychology behind it, stuff like that. Is it dangerous? Is it?
I think in a very broad sense, yes, radicalism is dangerous.
Okay.
I think it's something that I try to stay away from in terms of, I try to check myself if I feel like my beliefs, or if I'm starting to buy into something that I feel like is maybe too radical or too extreme or not sort of balanced and rational enough.
Okay.
I think there have been in big sort of social movements, I feel like there's always a radical group, and while they don't make maybe the most progress, I feel like a comment that people make is they get the ball rolling. A lot of people view the Black Panthers as being more radical than MLK and his sort of peaceful protest approach, but I think there was a place for both groups.
Okay.
And I think there's merit to what the Black Panthers did and their sort of role in the civil rights movement, but that doesn't mean I think I across the board condone radicalism. I think a lot of radical religious groups are really dangerous. Mm-hmm. Any sort of cult, or just there are also, I feel a lot of religious groups that wouldn't necessarily qualify as a cult, but are really radical, and it's more than you it's more frequent than you think it is.
I think it would be important to really define what radicalism is.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, going with the Black Panther thing, the Black Panther Party, it might be a little up in the air as to whether or not they really are a radical movement.
Group, yeah.
Because, obviously they lean a certain way on a specific stance. But radicalism might have to do with the goal of whatever group we might be talking about.
And in terms of the goal of Black Panthers, they weren't really radical.
I think radical more has to do so with the mindset and the actual actions as opposed to what they're trying to accomplish.
Okay, that's
because the whole thing with radicalism is some people may have some radical thoughts, but you wouldn't define them as being a radical person unless they did something with those thoughts.
Do you think the danger lies within the within the thoughts, or do you think it's really only dangerous if there are actions?
I only think it's dangerous if there's actions to go with it, because a thought in and of itself can't really do much
if you don't act on the thought. The thought can push you in a certain direction, but the thought itself doesn't produce any harm. It's what you do. It's if you choose to act on that thought or not. But the thought in and of itself is just a thought.
I agree. I don't think you can deny that the radical movements are what bring things to the forefront, mm-hmm. and provide motivation, provide the inertia and momentum necessary to get things up and off the ground. Yes, it's dangerous. Radicalists draw attention, provide motivation, and create the inertia for these movements to get off the ground. It is dangerous, on the other hand. It are more dangerous thoughts. I don't know if the world can not be dangerous, though, so I don't know. Yeah. It's it's ambiguous.
And weren't we just talking about this, how when we talk about the world, we don't mean the physical, natural world, we just mean society. We mean what we've created.
Yeah, working within human society.
Mm-hmm. Human society is dangerous.
Yeah, and if you want to, a lot of people in society generally, I feel as if this is a really common thought among people, is that a lot of people in society have a certain way of doing things, and if you want to change that, you might need a radical movement to
convince people that it's worth changing. Yeah,
and although it's probably going to be dangerous because you have the group that wants to change the thing, and they're willing to change it by any means necessary, and then you have the other group who doesn't want it to change, and they'll probably do it by any means necessary. I think in the end, hopefully they can find like a middle ground, but you can't start with the middle ground, I guess.
I mean, that's why. I mean, for me, that means that it'd be more effective to do things bottom up than top down.
Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, so like, the whole concept of being radical means that you're not playing within the 40-yard lines.
We could use this political spectrum as an example.
Yeah,
So-
that's accurate.
The liberals over here and the conservatives over here, and like if you picture it as if like it were a football field, the 40-yard line analogy would be like in the middle.
I think like that's an important thing to strive for.
It doesn't matter the direction of your cause,
Right.
whether it's good or bad. People are radicals for their good cause and doing things
Exactly.
that are over the top. You know, I don't really understand why people get mad when someone with a different opinion comes to speak at your school. If they're an eccentric person who's doing it for a show, then it's even more doubly on you for responding.
I mean, for me, I just want to just go through my life.
Right.
Like, I view myself not as a terribly radical person in any direction whatsoever.
What's the most radical view you hold?
Let's see.
Oh, Dean.
Get ready to tear them apart.
Oh my gosh. Here we go. Okay, most radical view.
Blue is a terrible color.
No.
I'm joking. I love blue.
Probably the most radical thing is that I don't consider hate speech to be, like, excluded under free speech. Like, I still think it's included under free speech.
Wow.
Okay.
Interesting.
I agree with that view.
Because, like, it's only... Because, to me, hate speech only falls under the category of inflammatory if you perceive it as inflammatory. And you can't control what someone perceives.
I don't really know the parameters of hate speech, but, like, I'm guessing it's different than, like, planning shit. And it's like, so
Yeah.
if you just say dumb stuff, then you just say dumb stuff and we should ignore you.
Yeah.
This is good for trying to really like narrow down where the boundary is between radicalism and not radicalism. Because what Joni said before, she said something about there being a difference between peaceful protest and radical protest. And it seemed as if that by radical you meant violence.
Violent. No, I do mean
So-
I really like don't like violence.
Yeah,
I really
but
don't like violence.
It comes to like it seems as if that we're viewing, or at least you are viewing radical as like something isn't really radical unless violence is involved.
I mean, not always. I guess I feel like violence can be really broad. Like, it doesn't even have to be physical. I just look at violence as something that's, like, really destructive and really extreme.
Okay.
So, I mean, because I think in the physical sense, like, in order for something to get physically violent, like, the parties involved have to feel so strongly for it to manifest itself so physically. In order for human beings to get so worked up that they become violent, whether that be physically or in some other way, like, I think that's not your rational self. That's not, like, really how you feel. That's not you when you're calm and you're really thinking something through. That's, you know, to consistently be violent, whatever that means to you, I think it means you're really overpowered and you're really overwhelmed and you're not your true, clear, moderate self.
Would you say anger is irrational, or only if you were to use it for if you were to act out on it violently?
I don't think anger is irrational. And again, this is all so circumstantial, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's so hard to, I feel like, I really don't like making generalizations because I just feel like there's always going to be a scenario in which, okay, like, maybe that was warranted, or, you know,
Right.
I think that's why I don't like violence, but I don't like needless violence. I don't like destruction.
Okay.
I've always been I'm really sensitive, I'm really empathetic, but like especially I'm really sensitive, and I think because I'm really sensitive, I'm really empathetic, I get hurt very easily. and I hurt for other people very easily. I always I have a hard time watching violent movies because I'm like, oh my god, like that person just died. I'm like, that's a whole human life. Like they're just gone. I get upset about this stuff.
Have you ever watched Game of Thrones?
I haven't watched Game of Thrones.
I think you have a tough time.
Yeah.
I got 2 points to make.
Two points to make. Okay.
Well, the first thing is that one thing that I've heard, and it makes a lot of sense, is that when you're dealing with legislation and also just generalizations and just sitting down and thinking about something, empathy is a really bad trait to have when doing that.
Interesting.
But sympathy is a great trait because if you do solely on empathy, then what you'll end up doing is favoring a particular group that you're empathizing with. Mm-hmm. And since you can't empathize with everyone at the same time, you can't appease everyone that way. Yeah. But if you're sympathetic, then you view what the best course of action is for everyone. Personally, it makes sense.
That does make sense, yeah.
But I'm still toying with that thought a little bit more. But I thought it would be pertinent to discussion right now. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is that there have been several examples throughout human history of just radical violent movements. Farthest back I can currently think of is the American Revolution. It was kind of so out there.
It was really out there.
That
I feel you forget about that.
Because just in a broader sense, at the time, people living in what is now the eastern United States were kind of happy with their lives under colony rule.
Right.
No one was not the general person was not against the British Empire at the time.
I wanted to bring up because I know you guys said something about hate speech shouldn't be viewed at, what was it?
It shouldn't be censored under free speech.
Okay, right. And so I have this feeling that you guys would probably say that hate speech wouldn't be radical for the same reason that you would.
Radical.
Is it?
Yeah, but you can't make you don't want to live in that cushy world of in between the 40-yard lines. As so you said, you need the radicals, and so it's you let that stuff go by. There's no way. You said you don't like violence. That's impossible. You can't
you can't get rid of it.
But. You can't get rid of it. It's you should work on yourself to make yourself more capable of dealing with it, so then you can live in the reality that is here. Because that's the problem.
No.
Most people are dealing with an ideal that they hold in their head, and they're not even looking at the real world. And the last thing they do is look at themselves and say, "What am I doing?" It's very rare that. I don't know, we say to go and radically help others, and I don't know, radically helping yourself will probably do the most for you. And so it's if you're a radical person, do it for you.
Do you think somebody that is a radical is probably do you think they're using this that as an excuse to be violent?
No. I think someone who's radical is they've got a lot of energy inside to burn. They got a lot of passion, and it's got to go somewhere, and it's gonna go somewhere. And however it gets funneled, that's how it gets funneled.
That's the thing. Don't you think extremists this is something I often wonder about? Are extremists just inherently more or less stable, or are you born into it? How do you get into extremism? Do you really believe in the thing, or is it your predisposition to...
4 or 5 tragedies, one after another, by something that you can point the finger at, and it's pretty easy to be an extremist, I would say.
That's how you get ISIL.
Wait, can I respond to one of Dean's earlier points? Just really quickly. So, your point about, the Revolutionary War. The way that we're taught, like, especially in elementary school, the way we're taught about the Revolutionary War is like, this was such a, like, honorable and, like, they were sticking up for what's right, like such heroes. And I think it just goes to the point. I mean, I appreciate America. I appreciate democracy. I think, again, that's like another conversation. It's just history really is written by the winners. And, like, what do you think, like, what sort of narrative would we, like, all, you know, sort of hold to be true if the Axis powers won World War II? You know what I mean? Like, would I be here? Like, not to be like that, but would I be here?
Is the purpose of radicalism to be able to write the history book in the end?
I don't know.
You just explained everything, sir. Everyone's motivations is to go down in history.
Probably. Like, why not? You are going to be in the Hartford, Connecticut, Springfield, Massachusetts area.
You mean the tri-state area?
The tri-state. It's only 2 states, Dean.
Okay.
Like Massachusetts is even one of the tri-states.
If you're going to be around Hartford and Springfield, and you would like to have a discussion with me and your friends or other people who knows anybody about any topic,
Or
or Dean,
your boy.
yeah, you can contact me on Twitter at PhilosophyWeb1. If you want to join the discussion, you can also do that on Twitter, or you can go to philosophyweb.boards.com. You can like our Facebook page, you can like our channel, you can subscribe.
Wait, there's a Facebook page?
I'm about to make one.
Oh.
Yeah. You can do a lot of things to help us out. Any help would be great. I would love to get everybody communicating as quickly as possible. So yeah, thank you for watching, and hope to see you next time.
I think that cat videos have taken over YouTube and the internet.
Probably. Yeah.
Fun.
Is that a radical movement?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Hear me out on this. This
Okay.
is pretty radical. Because it's been so embedded in the internet that, like, when people try to get like an AI to like learn stuff on the internet, the first word it learned was cat.
That's fair.
It's really interesting.
It doesn't surprise me.